Hello everyone, back tuning into today's third video in CFS 6 Month Look-Ahead for today's third video. So just for fun, we're going to go 6 months ahead with the long-range CFS B2 model. And this is going to take us from next month, from October through to March 2019. So really interesting update coming up, and you're going to see what the CFS is currently forecasting through the rest of the autumn, through the winter, and even into the start of the spring. Do bear in mind, this is just for fun, it's just for laughs. The first month or two, yes, has some scientific merit because if model is working correctly, then that's within a shorter range time frame. But as you go through sort of 3, 4, 5, 6 months away, then that is just too far away for the model to have a decent grasp on what's happening. So, although the charts are there, might as well use them. Do please take it with a pinch of salt. Just to say that today's first video was the weekend forecast. As always on Saturday, having a detailed look at the weather for the week ahead. And then we also got the rest of the models together and did a week to 10-day update and all of the latest in terms of tropical storms in the Atlantic Ocean and that kind of thing. So have a look at that video. It's here on the home page. Just scroll down page a little bit and you'll find it above the weather alert section. I'll talk you through what's happening at Gasworthy's tomorrow at the end of the video. So let's get on with your CFS 6 months look ahead for September 2018. We're going to begin with month 1, which of course is within the shortest time frame within all of this, so hopefully this is the most accurate of all of the months we're going to look at. This is October. This is 700 millibar height anomaly forecast for October 2018, and the model is going for below average heights to be to our north around Greenland and Iceland, with above average heights through the central part of the Atlantic. It leaves us bringing in a flat westerly flow, something like that. So it looks like we're in for an unsettled October here, if the CFS is right, and not overly warm either. We're not really bringing the air up from a tropical part of the Atlantic. Actually, we're probably bringing quite cool air in from the northern Atlantic, from sort of Greenland and that kind of area. So unsettled and cool is a signal, I think, for October with this month's CFS 6 months look ahead. And then we go through to November. This again, 700 millibar height anomaly for November, and very similar, very unsettled November being signaled here with above average heights to our south and below average heights up to the north. There's a subtle difference in that the air is probably coming from further south in the Atlantic. So, although it's still very unsettled, I suspect that it would be a bit milder in November. So October, I think, has the potential for some cooler, maybe even colder conditions and unsettled. And then November could be a milder variety of unsettled weather, but they both do look very Atlantic driven. They both look as though they could be really quite mild months indeed. That takes us through to month 3 into December. Again, very unsettled month being forecast by the CFS V2 for December. What's going on this time, though, is that the area of above average heights is pulling out into sort of a central and possibly even northwestern part of the Atlantic Ocean, which leaves us with this deep trough of below average heights just to the west of the UK. The way the trough and the ridge are aligned, I think we're probably bringing the flow in rather like that. And there is some cold potential in with that, but you would need really to have it cold to shift that trough eastwards. But I think we could certainly set the jet stream on a northwest-southeast alignment, something like that, between the low and the high. And so, again, very unsettled month in December. Could be really wet, actually. But also the chance of some cold snaps at the very least at times there, I would have thought. And then we're through to January, and I'm afraid this isn't very good for anybody that wants cold weather, because look what's happening. We're raising the heights to the south. That's the big thing in January. Above average heights are appearing across many sort of central southern parts of Europe, and with the below average heights out to the north and the northwest of the country, we will be pulling up a long fetched southwesterly wind rather like that. And so January is turning very mild there in that kind of scenario. Would be quite wet. Yes, quite a wet month, particularly for the north and west, but it would be a very mild month in January if that came off. However, it is month 4, so no point being overly concerned about that. This is how February is looking. Taste of spring in February, with the below average heights again around Greenland and Iceland. The above average heights from southern Europe are building further north, and so that's the kind of thing we had like in 1998. So that's exceptionally mild potentially as we're going into February. It could be really dragging the air up from a very, very long way south. It is also much drier though. The Atlantic is weakening with the heights rising over to the south and the east of the country. You would expect a dry month or a drier month, but also very mild. And then month 6, we finish up with this. This is excuse me, this is March, and look what's happening then. All of a sudden we have this huge amount of northern blocking appearing around Greenland, so that is tremendously blocked there. That we're seeing in March, and with below average heights underneath it, and with that level of blocking, we will be undoubtedly pulling cold air down into the trough. So we finish up month 6 just for fun, but we do finish up potentially very cold, and after about much milder spell through January and February, even quite a warm spell through January and February, we finish up a lot colder as we get through to March. Let's have a look at the temperature anomalies then that go with those height anomalies. So this again came back to October, month 1, hopefully most reliable out of all of this, if everything is working as it should. So the far northeast and east of Europe, warmer than average temperature anomalies there through to the west of Russia. But actually most parts of Europe just coming out with average temperature anomalies in October. And that's quite cool for this model, to be honest. So with those average temperature anomalies in October, I reckon you could probably shave a bit more off that. And you do have the potential there for a colder month, actually, maybe even slightly colder than average in October. Whoops, that went a little bit wrong, so let's go back to that. So maybe colder than average in October. And the reason, of course, is that whilst we've got the low pressure out here, we also have high pressure kind of out there, and a little bit of a northwesterly tilt to the jet stream means that although it's an unsettled month, it could also be rather cool as well. That's November though, and I thought November looked like it would be a more milder version of unsettled conditions. That's what the model is showing. Temperature anomalies going above average in November. Actually, the UK, Ireland, Spain and Portugal are one of the cooler places in Europe. Most places from France eastwards come out very warm indeed during November. Remember, those are anomalies to average, so for Northern Europe it's still going to be pretty cold a lot of the time. But nevertheless, a much milder than average November being predicted. And the reason for that is, and again, it's very unsettled with the below average heights out there, but we're raising the heights down there. And so instead of having northwesterlies, such as we have in October, what we actually get are west to southwesterlies, which is a subtle difference, but it's an important difference because the air is coming from a milder source in the Atlantic Ocean. That's December. That also looking very mild for many parts of Europe in particular. For the UK and Ireland, again, actually those temperature anomalies are only a little bit above average for southern England, and for much of the north and west, actually close to average. So slightly cooler again, potentially in December for us, as the flow, again, is coming just that little bit more northwesterly. So just the potential for a few cold snaps there in what is, again, a very unsettled month with lots and lots of low pressure around here and around there and around there. Most parts of Europe come out, again, with a very mild month being signalled for December. And then this is pretty brutal. This is January. It's get behind the sage long time if you want cold weather, because look at that, all parts of Europe being forecast to have an exceptionally mild month in January. Some parts of Central Europe are actually going kind of like 2 to 3 degrees above average there. Across central parts of Europe. Again, the reason for that is that we're bringing up long effect southwesterly winds during January, with low pressure up there, but high pressure strengthening around there. So it's the same old really with the CFS V2. We do these updates year after year, and when has the CFS V2 ever forecast cold weather at this time of the year for Europe in the winter? I can't remember it ever happening, certainly not for a very, very, very long time. So it's same old story, and it is month 4, so not necessarily worth being too concerned if you want cold weather. And then it just goes on into February, just a sea of warmth really. In February, remember, we raise the heights from southern Europe and actually build them through to there, with low pressure out here and the high pressure down there. We are dragging up the air from a very, very long way south, possibly bringing the air up from North Africa during February. So an exceptionally mild month, not just the UK and Ireland, but for all parts of Europe, really coming out with an exceptionally mild month. I have to say that looks ridiculous. I mean, there's no cold average temperature anomalies anywhere, is there? So we've got from Norway down to Scotland and Ireland, it's warmer than average. And then that's the Black Sea, it's warmer than average to the northern Black Sea, it's warmer than average to the southern Black Sea, it's warmer than average through the Mediterranean, and all parts of Central Europe are coming out warmer than average, and all parts of northeast Europe coming out warmer than average as well, as is the west of Russia. I mean, it's just so sort of crazy with warmth that we see there for February, but I don't think it can be right. You would expect that over the continent of Europe, at least somewhere, even if it's around the Black Sea and sort of down to Turkey, maybe somewhere would be colder than average at some point, but there's no sign of it at all with that. And then we go through to March. It's month 6. And I mean, again, this just demonstrates the warm bias that's at work within this month, because that is the temperature anomaly for March. And actually, again, the UK and Ireland are cooling down to average, as is Scandinavia. So obviously it is cooling during March for northern and northwestern parts of Europe. But for most parts of Europe, actually, again, we are still in March warmer than average. And how you possibly get a warmer than average month across Europe with that kind of 700 bit of our height anomaly, where we are talking about really extreme levels of blocking there around Greenland. So how you would get that, the jet stream also is on a southerly track. The jet stream is going through central part of the Atlantic like that. So you should be pulling down cold air in from the north and possibly even from the east to some degree. How you would get such a warm anomaly for Europe from such a blocked pattern, I'm not sure. So again, shave off several degrees from that, but it is all within the realm of being justified because it's 6 months away. But I just wanted to demonstrate really that the temperature anomaly bears no relation to the height anomaly that I can see in particular. I'm sure someone will argue with me about that, but really I can't see how that temperature anomaly could occur with the height anomaly that we have there. And then finally we come back to precipitation. So this is how the model is seeing things for October in terms of a precipitation perspective. So actually a little bit drier than I would have expected for central parts of Europe, across France, into Germany and into the Low Countries, coming out drier than average. Some parts of southern England coming out drier than average as well. I suppose that's because we've got this area of above average heights in the central part of the Atlantic. So that's probably sending some sort of ridge in across that part of Europe. But I would have thought for the UK it would be a little bit more unsettled than that shows. It is a bit wetter than average over Scandinavia and for Scotland. So, I mean, we're splitting two really. The south looks fairly dry for October. The north does look a little bit more unsettled. Going wetter than average then into November. So the Atlantic's cranking itself up in November. It's a milder but wetter than average month for the UK and for Ireland in November. Then it turns very wet as we get through into December across western parts of Europe. It is interesting that in December the model has things drier than average around Norway. At the very least, that does suggest that the jet stream is on a more southerly track, which you would have thought would allow cold snaps at the very least into the UK and into Ireland. Also a very unsettled month in December with significantly above average precipitation, not only for the UK and for Ireland, but for much of France and even down into Spain and Portugal. January also looking wet, so yes, above average rainfall and significantly above average temperatures during January, which you would expect because the model is forecasting long fetched southwesterly winds which drag the air up from the tropical Atlantic. So not only is it very mild, but also moisture laden air, and that will dump lots of water from off the Atlantic across not just the UK but many parts of Europe as well. February turning drier, so we've got the above average heights building from southern Europe rather like that and going up into that sort of direction, which pulls the winds in from North Africa. So obviously it's a very mild month, but it is drier with heights rising across Europe. And then finally, we're through to March. This is where it had all of that northern blocking close to Greenland. So you can see what's going on in March. It's wet here down across southern Europe. That's because the jet stream is going through across southern Europe, of course. It's drier in this area. That's because we've got all of the blocking areas of high pressure going on. And in between, of course, well, near average precipitation, because it would be cold, a lot of that could be wintry into March. So you have to wait a very, very long time, but eventually the CFS does get there and hints something a little bit colder happening in March. I'll just take you back to February, just to say that the progression that's happening there from January through to February through to March, so obviously what's happening in January is that we have the above average heights across Central Europe, and we will bring the air up from the southwest like that, no problem with that. February, though, is a little bit interesting. It might be a bit transitional. So although we have this area of above average heights across central parts of Europe, it could be what's going on there is that the heights are kind of moving northwards. So that wouldn't rule out the chance of some cold weather in February if those heights moved very, very quickly. Because I think you can see that there is a progression from, let's start at December, so that's December. There's a progression of heights rising across Central Europe and eventually finishing up to our north from kind of like December to January to February to March. You can sort of see how the CFS is getting to that very blocked pattern in March, and I suspect the month where it's all happening, because that's a big change from, let's say, from January to March, that's a big change. I suspect what's happening is that February is the transitional month. So where we've got these heights rising across Central Europe from Southern Europe, that's probably happening because heights are rising and pushing north. There might be miles picking up on some sort of sudden stratospheric warming happening in early February, similar to what happened last winter. Actually, it could be that the model is picking up on some sort of southern stratospheric warming occurring, and so those heights are shifting from southern Europe and finish southern Europe in January and finishing up over Greenland in March in the form of very extensive northern blocking, and February is the transition when that would be happening. So maybe not quite as clear cut for mild in February as I suggested, but March is the only month really that does have genuine cold possibilities, potential from the northern block. And of course that's 6 months away, so we say it again, that's just for fun. And in fact all of that through the winter months is just for fun. let's come back to the more recent or the more reliable time frame, hopefully. So October, to me, looks like could be quite unsettled, probably quite a cool month as well, certainly no better than average. November also looking unsettled, but a milder variety of unsettled. Maybe you can get to month 3 in December and say, but another unsettled month is favoured. Perhaps a little bit similar to October, though. There is some potential for colder snaps with that unsettled weather in December. And then we're through to January, February, March. And we've talked about it a lot in the video, but I won't really include it in the summing up phase because it's too far away. Right, so that's CFS 6 Month Look-Ahead for September. We'll do it all over again next month, and will there be any more for cold lovers to go on in October, CFS 6 Month Look-Ahead? You'll find out same time, same place next month. I did say that I'd tell you what's happening at website tomorrow. So tomorrow we have got the 4th Winter 2018-19 update. That'll be released at 10 a.m. in the morning. It's going to be a bit of an Atlantic Oceans special. So that's going to be quite an interesting one. And also, tomorrow we've got the ECMWF and Meteo France seasonal model update. That'll be with you tomorrow afternoon. That will be quite interesting, and I'll say no more about that, but it has been causing a lot of chatter, this month's ECMWF seasonal model run. It's been causing a lot of chatter on the forums and on social media. You'll find out why you don't know in tomorrow's second video. Right, at 21 minutes, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.